least one fan. Yes.
Set up by not following the law.
Can I get two other responses before?
Yes, sir. Hello. Hello. 1 2 1 2.
So let's start with others, then we can end with that.
Kidogo tu. Kinakuhurumia lakini sasa.
Why haven't you ever run for office?
Lakini posture iko sawa. Posture iko sawa. Okay. No, it's okay then. Kama posture iko sawa then ni sawa.
Shida yangu tu ndo naambiwa nirudi hapa juu ya hapa juu.
Oh. Okay. Iko sawa. Thanks.
That's how they refer to you. So insulting. Donald Trump insulted Kevin Conway's husband.
Yes. Mr. Conway.
Yes.
Wow.
Like welcome back to The Loop, a bold and fresh look at our lives here in Kenya. And we're taking a really bold and fresh look at what this Constitution has done for us. 10 years down the line, we celebrated the Constitution's birthday yesterday. And we're asking you, has this Constitution done anything for you? 10 years down the line, has your life changed? Is anything better or it's worse? Is this Constitution worth the paper that it is written on? And of course, the WhatsApp number is on the screen, and you can talk to us. Send us your WhatsApp and tell us, what has this Constitution done for you? So let's sample some of these responses. Katiba at 10 has very significance to Wanjiko, or rather is significant to Wanjiko. In fact, it only has favored the elite class. Now they want it changed to continue favoring them. That's John Kabila here. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the new constitution. Following enhancement of the gender rule, the introduction of women rep position has enabled more women to also provide leadership. Changing the constitution is not actually the solution. Kenyans will still face the same challenges and problems, but on different papers. Wow. The constitution has not been implemented to our satisfaction. It hasn't done anything good to me. What about you? Peter says, the former president Mwai Kibaki had some experience of about 2 years of the constitution and has remained informed of the country's performance. How about some consultation about his view? Haven't heard of his output, that is if he can. Oh, that's interesting. The constitution should be held and changed at equal measures. Okay. Good evening. I really concur with that lady who is infuriated. She expresses the opinion of the common Mwananchi. We are sick and tired. I can assure you, very soon there shall be an awakening. The president and the presidency itself set a precedent by not following the law. No wonder the wanton corruption and looting is happening right, left, and center. And then finally somebody says, I love the input by Kamotho Waiganjo. I have always admired and respected that gentleman. Msalimie. Kamotho Waiganjo umesalimia. Umesalimika. Okay, so Valentine, one of the questions, of course, that we are discussing here, as we look through the Constitution, is the issue of women's political representation.
Yes. Why aren't women running for office? What do you think, Kamotho?
One, it's not that women are not running for office. The reality is that if you look at where we have come from historically, we have generally tended to exclude and marginalize those who are powerless. And because women have been powerless, whether socially, economically, we have tended to just like we marginalize people who have disability, we marginalize young people, those who don't hold economic and social power. So we have tended to do that. What has then happened is that over time we've been socialized to almost imagine that women do not make good leaders. So even when women offer themselves, they have a very, very huge ladder to climb before they can be voted in. That's number one. Number two is that politics, the way it is structured, and I suspect Karen has been involved in campaigning, you know that typical political campaigning in Kenya is not gender friendly.
No,
it usually
it's not.
happens at night. It happens in very dark places where all manner of conversations happen. And socially, it is not very helpful. And number 3 is that it's also very expensive. A lot of resources are actually controlled. I don't think we understand how much the male gender controls the economic resources. And so even to access resources for women becomes difficult. So both from socialization, both from the social angle, and then of course the money. And then don't forget that in the last election, because of the women's rep position, the narrative by most most leaders was to say the women already have their positions. Where are they coming for these ones of ours? So that's part of a problem. And then finally, and that's why I led, is that we also have not lifted very many women so that people have models of capable women leaders. I campaigned for Charity Gill in 1997, I think it was. And when I went around the country, even women told me, but which woman can lead? Which woman have you seen in leadership? You know, and so part of our challenge is to raise women leadership so that people see, hey, women are actually able to deliver.
Yeah, to create a new paradigm.
Yeah.
Karen, you ran for office, or you tried to run for office. What happened?
Wow, so my experience was very interesting. I was in student leadership for 4 consecutive years, and I discovered, you know what, I think I've succeeded so I can get into national politics. So in my final year, I joined a political party. I served the party for a whole year. And then come 2007, I decided, you know what, I'm going to run and become member of parliament and see what I can do for my community. Oh my goodness. I naively thought that campus politics had sufficiently prepared me. You know, looking back, I feel like had I had maybe proper mentorship, I would have made some good headways. But I go to the ground and I discover the ballgame is totally different. I have no resources, but I imagined that my track record would actually speak for me, and I would get votes and I would get support and I would get the elderly people coming and saying, oh, let's rally behind her. Oh, but that was a different story altogether. Propaganda, threat of violence, and I discovered, you know what, this is not my thing.
Threat of violence to your face directly, or, you know, sideways, for news?
Both.
Okay.
Both. So time came when I consulted with my family, my dad and mom, and we said, you know what, politics is not yours. Go back, maybe to the media, because I was a journalist then. But then I gave it up and I felt really, really shattered. But years down the line, I have met amazing women and even men who have shared vast of stories of their experiences of running for office. And I decided, you know what, I think more young women and young men, but especially young women, need mentorship, coaching, guidance, and they need to see many more women, like Kamotho says, many more women profiled and role modeling to see that we can also lead, we can make it.
Can I say one of the frustrations as a journalist, you try and get women in leadership to come and sit on a show like this and even talk about, you know, what they want to do for their constituents or what they've achieved, and they don't want to. It has been a consistent frustration because I'm very happy, you know, this is how I met you. I'm very happy to pass the microphone to a woman and they're resistant. I wonder, is that a political party thing? What's going on there? Are women not allowed to speak on behalf of their parties?
I think it also depends with who, like, you know, parties in Kenya are owned. There are people who control the parties. There are people who speak on behalf of the parties. And I have seen that women have been relegated to the women leagues. And I feel like, is there really a woman leader who is a spokesperson of a political party? Is there?
Unless it's an owner like NAC Kenya.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, in most of the major parties, you're not going to find that. I think part of it is just that it's also a very exhausting business. I don't think people realize just what it takes to be a woman in leadership in this country. It's hard work, it's exhausting, it's tiring. You fight 10 times more than any man to succeed on very basic issues. You have to fight every step of the way on issues, even the issues we're talking about gender, even to advance issues concerning women in your constituency, in your county, is very difficult because there's an almost automatic reaction against it. So I think when people get where they are, they just want to sit down and breathe. You know, so sometimes that's part of the problem. That I can guarantee you that the typical effective woman in leadership is probably working 5 times, if not more, than the average man in leadership,
Oh.
just to get by. So it's the process of and don't forget, the Valentine, that these people still have their other roles, social, home, and otherwise.
Right.
Commissioner Lichuma is still with us. And Commissioner, let me ask you a question. Do you think the resistance in having more women in leadership, the resistance that comes from men, is because men know that when you have more women around the table, they're going to ask very hard questions about things that other men probably would not ask. Women will take you to task about decisions that you're making. Women will take you to task about how it is you're spending money. Women will take you to task about the considerations that you took into place when making some of the decisions. Do you think these are some of the things that are making men resistant to having more women on the decision-making table?
Mike, studies that have been done, and here I want to refer to McKinsey, who has done a study, and he says that companies that have women in decision-making positions deliver more profit than those that do not have women. And women have what we call the intelligence that is more emotional intelligence. And when you put them in leadership positions, I have seen this on boards, women will ask the hard questions. Women will read board papers before they come to the meeting. So clearly, the challenge men then would want to fear for women is real. But now, talking about, I want to agree with my colleague, Kamotho, that in terms of the political leadership in this country, the terrain is very, very difficult for women. We have very many women who are good leaders. And we have men who are bad leaders. We have women who are bad leaders. So I don't think in comparison one would want to say that men always make good leaders. It's just that the inequalities in these countries have driven women under. We have made our politics very expensive for reasons I've never understood. Political parties in these countries belong to the owners, and majority of the owners are the men. So clearly, women have no room in terms of maneuvering to get to the top leadership. When you have presentation of the candidates, we try to suggest a simple rule whereby, why don't we have every party give us a third of the women within their list in their strongholds? And that the political parties do not want. So you would see political parties have said they've given women room, but a party that is strong in Central will then be giving many women in areas where they are not very strong. What is the end result? The end result is that the women will definitely not make it. They will not make it in terms of how competitive the politics are. Secondly, in terms of political parties, we have situations whereby parties now will ask the women not to run because they will get the nominations. And Mike, when we talk about the nomination in this country, this is another very, very murky area. Women, today you're on the list, tomorrow you are not on the list. So eventually even the final list that goes to IBC, you are not very sure who is on that list. And remember when I was in the office, every 2 elections we had to go to court to contest the political party list. And if you look at Article 90 of the Constitution, and Kamotho, you can bear me this out, we try to say that Article 90 expects a competitive process, whereby in terms of the political party, it's an election. So why wouldn't political parties then recruit the people who need to go for the nomination, have them go through a competitive process? If they are women, rank them. And if you get to secure 6 seats, you have your ranks, number 1, number 2, number 3, up to number 6. You give those women. But the party lists are still done under the table that you never get to know who is on those lists. And for the women of these countries, honestly, they don't have the resources to run.
And it's a good thing that you've raised the question of resources. And when we come back after this break, we're going to be asking, there are some affirmative action resources that are in place. Have these done anything to improve the lives of women, vulnerable people, vulnerable populations, and people who are marginalized? That and much more after the break. Remember, you're watching The Loop. We are a bold and fresh look at our lives in Kenya, and we're asking the question today, 10 years down the line, what has this constitution done for you?